So good morning, my name is Leslie. How many of you have heard or know the word euthanasia? Couple? Okay, good. So there are three different types of euthanasia. We have involuntary, non-voluntary, and voluntary euthanasia. Euthanasia is a form of ending a person suffering by ending their lives. According to Medical News Today, euthanasia is defined as assisted suicide, physician-assisted suicide, and doctor-assisted death. But in other terms, it is also called mercy killing. It is called mercy killing because, again, you are ending a person suffering by ending their lives. There are many methods to euthanasia, but the most common one is lethal injection. Most of us know lethal injection because it is used on death row for prison inmates. The reason I am credible for speaking about euthanasia is because there was an incident with a family friend, who was in a coma for 2 years, and within those 2 years, she suffered a heart attack, and the doctors had pronounced her brain dead. So there was nothing the doctors could do anymore to bring her back to life. Her husband finally decided to take her off life support, and she is now free and able to be at peace once again. The reason I believe euthanasia should be considered in terminal ill cases is something that should be thought about by people who see others suffering, and that is why I believe it should be practiced in some terminal ill cases. In order to understand that, I will first explain to you what euthanasia is, what countries legally practice it. Secondly, I will also tell you guys why other people do not have the right to choose for others. And lastly, why euthanasia should be considered in terminal ill cases, like I said, followed by an example by a girl named Lynn. So types of euthanasia. We have involuntary euthanasia, which is where a person is killed against their desired wishes. So the person could be in a coma or not aware of what is going on, and the doctor or a family member just decides to end their lives. Non-voluntary euthanasia is where a person is unable to give consent and another person takes that decision on their behalf, often because the ill person expressed for their life to be ended in such circumstances. So this could be, like in my family's friend's case, where the husband ended his wife's life because she wished for that to happen if she were ever to be in that term. And voluntary euthanasia is where a person makes a conscious decision to die and asks for help to do so. So what is the problem with euthanasia? The main problem with euthanasia is that it is immoral and considered murder. It should be banned around the world. Although euthanasia is considered murder, the people who are pro about it view it as a way to be free and liberated from their suffering and the pain. This person is suffering and continues to suffer, and we don't know how they feel. So their only wish is to be free and be able to stop the suffering. That is why they consider euthanasia a solution. However, euthanasia is not practiced or legalized around the globe. There are only 7 countries that practice euthanasia, and 4 American states as well. The 7 countries would be Belgium, Colombia, India, Ireland, Luxembourg, Mexico, and the Netherlands. The 4 American states are Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Vermont. And Vermont actually just turned 2 years of euthanization legalized last Wednesday. So my second point would be, who has the right to go through euthanization? No one has the right to go through euthanization because life was given to us by a higher power, but I'm not going to get into that. But involuntary and non-voluntary euthanasia should be banned. No matter what the situation one is in, if you have not given consent about your life, then no one should take that into their own matters and decide for one. So people do not have the right to choose for others. Doctors cannot decide without the consent of the ill and guardian person in charge, and the guardian person should be in charge of what is going to happen to the person who is ill and is unable to make their own decisions about whether or not they want to live or not. Voluntary euthanization should be allowed under some circumstances, and this should be allowed if the person meets the criteria. So there is a criteria that you have to meet in order to go through euthanization. So the first thing is the person has made an active and voluntary request to end their lives. secondly, it is thought that they have sufficient mental capacity to make an informed decision regarding their care, and it is agreed that the person is suffering unbearable and there is no prospect for an improvement in their condition. So the only way voluntary euthanization can happen is if your mind is still okay, but you cannot handle the pain. That is the only way it could be taken into consideration, and it could be allowed. However, since it is not practiced around the country, you would have to be able to go to Oregon, Montana, Vermont, or Washington. Okay, so killing someone is murder. Killing the ill is immoral, but we are not in their position. We have no clue, not one bit of knowledge on how they must be feeling. So there is no cure. Euthanasia should only be practiced with the consent of the person, like they said. I am not saying it is okay to kill someone just because they want to die or because they're sick. They should meet that criteria. In order to inform you more about it, I thought I'd give you an example of Lynn Gildergale. Lynn Gildergale was 14 when she was diagnosed with ME, which is a chronic fatigue syndrome. Lynn was bedridden, and she had broken bones just from being in bed or being moved in bed. If Lynn were to ever overcome chronic fatigue syndrome, she would still have to deal with osteoporosis, ongoing anemia, liver dysfunction, and hyperthermia dysfunction. So Lynn Gildergale said to herself and to her mother that if she were to turn 30 and still be in this condition, she didn't want to continue living like this anymore. So her mother, with a heartache, decided to help Lynn commit suicide. She gave Lynn 2 syringes full of morphine, and after that didn't work, she gave her crushed depression pills and gave her 2 syringes full of air, trying to get her to get pneumonia. And after that didn't work, they gave her, I believe it was 2 more syringes of morphine, which caused her to die 23 hours later. On December 4th at 7:10 p.m., Lynn had stopped breathing, and Lynn was no longer suffering. She was free at last. So in this case, I believe Lynn made a brave choice to end her suffering and to be able to be the normal 10-year-old girl she was before she turned 14 and was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. In conclusion, I believe that killing someone involuntary is murder, but if the person desires to end their own suffering, then why not appeal to their wish if it will cause them freedom from their suffering? So I first talked about what euthanasia is, the 3 different types there are, why other people should not choose when to kill someone or when to end someone's life if they are in bedridden. And last, I gave you an example of a person who made a brave choice to, stop suffering and just move on. And in the end, we do as we please with our bodies, whether we are alive or in a bedridden. So we must not look at euthanasia as an easy way out of situation, not even as a last resort, but as a way to be free again. I mean, who would want to be in Lynn Gildergale's position and just be bedridden for the rest of your life, seeing life through a window and not being able to experience it yourself? Just think about that.